Can you call the roll, please?
Sir. Ms. Whitwer.
Here.
Mr. Kelly.
Present.
Mr. Coe. Present. Mr. Mott. Ms. Palestrina.
Here.
Mr. Robinson absent. And Mr. Ritchie.
Okay, please rise for the pledge of allegiance if you're able. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Anyone signed up to speak this evening? No, you're on the end. You get to read it.
Mike Gazzola is up first.
Good evening. Good evening. I'm Mike Gazzola, and I'm with Hampshire Commercial Realty. And I wanted to just comment a little on your ordinance tonight, the truck washes. I'm a 35-year industrial veteran. My business is development and construction. I've been doing business in Hampshire for about 25 years, trying to bring deals and just continue to do so. I started when I was 15 years old. So anyway, I am in favor of this. I think we've been looking at this for a while. I think there's an efficiency in doing this kind of thing, as long as it maintains some oversight, obviously, and protections based on some of the questions that were raised regarding EPA. And everything I've read that's come through seems to support it. So anytime that as someone that tries to attract business, some of our clients have come here. I'd like to see that efficiency maintained, and I think it helps all parties. I spent a year on the business development committee, trying to help in the beginning, that first year, how to think through some of this, and I think that's gone a long way, and there's a lot more to come. So we're not done, really in the middle of things, if you will. So again, I am in favor of this. I think it's being done for the right reasons. And I think it will just help all parties. It'll help me do what I try to do to get folks to like you. Thank you.
Gabriel Moscow.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. My name is Gabriel Moscow. I am currently half owner and operator of Pride Truck Center in Salton Transit, which is in the Hampshire Woods area. We are also the owners of the lot Arrowhead Drive. And like Mike, I'm also here to speak a little bit on the ordinance regarding truck washes. I've been in the business for 28 years. In fact, very, very early on in my career started here, very, very coincidentally here in Hampshire with Travel Centers of America. I've been in the travel center business, spent 20 years in the corporate world for Travel Centers of America. Hampshire, Illinois was home, or a portion at the time. I ran 298 locations for business before I decided to become an entrepreneur, pursue the businesses that we're in. As some of you may know, we, as a one half of my partnership, explored the possibility of putting a truck on the ground. I say I have some personal interest in wanting the ordinance to go through, but we have opted to no longer pursue truck washing or ground. Not to do with this current ordinance that we're seeing upon us, but because we met with the travel center group that is pursuing, and we determined that strategically from a business perspective, it was best if we took a step back from that, but not because we felt that there was any concerns with it. In fact, like Mike said, everything that we have read, everyone that we spoke to up to this point of exploring that option, we determined that it was a fit. Everything was being met. In fact, some of those requirements are being met above and beyond the current expectations of those EPA requirements. We again have ties to the community. My business partner owns residential property in your community. I'm currently looking at placing my parents in your community, looking to purchase residential property in this community. I would not bring my loved ones to this community. If I felt that we were engaging in some shape, way, or form by adding this time this year. We're invested in this community. We want to continue to grow this community. We want to develop that. We're still moving along with our development of the Arrowhead Drive lot. We're just pursuing a different avenue. We feel that we're better aligned with the Trauma Center group that's putting up the truck wash if we allow them that space to put that up. Not here to overcrowd your area with truck washes or facility washes, not at all. We just felt and saw a need for it. We are currently looking at revitalization and growth of even the hotel in your area. We want to bring value here. Feel that with our experience that we have, we can do that. And again, kind of the reason why I'm in favor of this one. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Okay. Before you have the meeting minutes from June 15th, 2023, at this time.
First, I've absent none, just ask that we.
Any other changes to the minutes? Entertain a motion to approve the minutes or with the changes that trustee Porter presented.
So moved.
Questions, comments, concerns? All in favor? All opposed?
Extension.
All right. We have the deputy village manager alliance now. As you know, Mr. Hedges is on vacation, visiting his grandchildren. So, because he was going to be out of the area for an extended period of time, our ordinance allows for the appointment of a deputy village manager, which Mr. Hedges did. So, welcome, deputy manager. Okay. What do you have for us this evening?
The first thing on the agenda is, the information or the proposed motor vehicle wash facilities. And we'll turn it over to Josh since he did such a bang up job on the, agenda stuff for us.
So at the prior meetings, the board has discussed this zoning amendment to allow more motor vehicle wash facilities as permitted use in various zoning districts. At the prior meetings, there were some questions and discussion related to the wastewater generated from these washes, pre-treatment of that wastewater, potential cost increases to the wastewater treatment system downstream that the village runs and operates. So the Planning and Zoning Commission voted 5-0 in approval of this zoning text amendment. They just spoke about the zoning piece themselves. So Mr. Brock's not with us tonight, but I don't recall any discussion of that similar line. However, staff did do some significant research into the current pretreatment regulations at the local level, as well as those of other communities in the area. So we did a survey of 18 other municipalities. There was also some supplemental information that was sent out after Trustee Kelly had reached out and asked for more information. I did also add to that the Fox River Water Reclamation District. I just didn't think to include them before, but they actually have some of the, I'll say, most lax pretreatment requirements in all of the area. You know, they're very large. They have a lot of communities that go into them, and they're a little bit different. But if you look at the averages in the table that was provided in the packet, those averages actually increase for the most part if you add the Fox River Valley District to it. So as you can see in that table, the Village of Hampshire has just as good, if not stricter, pretreatment requirements than all these other communities. One of the specific pollutants that was discussed last time was oil and grease. Hampshire's being at 100 milligrams per liter. There was discussion because Love's Truck Stop is designed to take that down to 10 milligrams per liter. So staff researched that, and utility supervisor Mark Montgomery came back and said that oil and grease is actually one of the best things for our treatment system because it's oversized for our population. The type of treatment that we use with the biological organisms that are in the treatment, they eat that as food basically. And so he says it helps our treatment process a lot when we get those types of fatty chemicals, oils and greases and fats. So restaurants and other types of things that produce that are actually really helpful. So he really did not recommend changing that. And ultimately, he did not recommend changing any of our pre-treatment standards at this time. We also have with us tonight the environmental director from Whiting Systems, John Kane. He's on the screen. You can see him there. Whiting Systems is the manufacturer for Love's truck wash that is currently under construction. As you know, they are accessory use to a truck stop, so they're committed to go forward. So John is available to answer any questions you might have about the environmental concerns, about the treatment process for these types of facilities. Is there anything you wanted to just add, John, or are you just available for questions?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes,
Okay,
thank you
good.
for joining us this evening.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to be with you folks tonight, and it's a real pleasure. And I really don't have anything to add other than the fact that it's an honor to be able to address you and be able to support the fact that Love's has really taken on a challenge to do things the proper way and the right way and be in compliance and be as good a neighbor as they possibly can. When they came to us, that was one of the things that they really emphasized. And I'm even when I travel, I think that they do a good job of trying to be a good neighbor for a community and for the customer. But I'm willing to answer any questions that you might have. And look like you guys are doing a great job there tonight, and I appreciate that.
I do have a question.
Absolutely.
The average for phosphorus is 22, Hampshire's 50. Why are we more than double?
Your phosphorus levels are the SDS that you find on these chemicals are in a concentrated form. By the time you dilute those forms before they're added to the vehicle, and when they hit the vehicle, they actually diminish somewhat. We have never had a phosphorus compliance problem with all the different washes we've had in different states, and we've got washes in most all states and several foreign countries, and phosphorus has never been an issue on the effluent from truck wash using these chemicals. It would dilute out to the point where it would be in compliance.
I do have one question. First, thank you for the memorandum that you provided on commercial truck washing. In the document that you provided at the top of page 2, you say that the discharges are regulated by the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permits or general permits granted by the state, and that these permits are highly monitored by regulators and can develop into very extensive fines if violations occur. Can you speak to what permits are required in the state of Illinois?
Well, let's make sure we understand. If it goes to a POTW or to a sanitary sewer, the receiving entity of that wastewater is the ones who will regulate the discharge or the effluent into that. That's who will do that now. The permit we were talking about here, if they do not have a POTW or a sewer system to discharge into and have to discharge to the environment, then the EPA comes in and allows the state to regulate that. And normally that's a pretty strict regulation. They will have to, most of the time, they will not be able to, the big thing is they will not be able to have any kind of foam or dirt at the discharge point. So it's got to be very clean water, and that water basically has to be a better quality water than the water that is in the area at that particular time. Oil and grease is very monitored, usually about a 10 parts per million at a grab sample. Solids are very limited, normally 80 to 100 milligrams per liter on your solids. pH is going to be regulated between 5 and 5 and 9, pardon me, normally on your discharge. And so you normally have to every month or every quarter, depending on how the permit is written, they will have to send certified analyticals into that entity, whether it be the state or the federal permit, for them to monitor that. So that's how they monitor the discharge from a NPDES permit.
Okay, thank you for that. And so you had said those are required if it's being not sent into a specific system. In the case that we're talking about, would it be sent into those types of systems so that the EPA and the state would not be considered regulators, but a local municipality would?
Yeah, it would, if it goes into your POTW that belongs to the city or to the area or to the receiving sewer system, then they would be the one who regulates and grants the permit for the discharge, for the effluent.
Okay, Mr. Paulson, is it your understanding that facilities would discharge in this manner in the village of Hampshire?
Yes, that's correct. It goes to the wastewater treatment plant. Yes.
Okay, thank you. What's our current permit for this type of discharge, and what is our current monitoring practices since we are considered the regulators?
We'd have to talk to the the staff of the treatment plant, but the permit is through the pre-treatment ordinance, and monitoring is done as needed if there isn't anything set up ahead of time. And then as far as compliance for the wastewater treatment plant, there are discharge compliance that they have to monitor before it releases from the wastewater treatment plant.
Those are compliances on us. I'm asking about even on, let's take it out of commercial trucks, since the permit's going to apply to other type of discharges going into the system, right? This isn't just about commercial truck. Sounds like that permit currently exists and it encompasses a lot of different industrial discharge. What is our current expectation to monitor and regulate that permit? What is our schedule of testing and requirements? Because Mr. King did a very eloquent job of talking about how the EPA and the state regulators require certified analytical test results from, I'm guessing, scientific agencies to provide the readouts of what that discharge is. Mr. Paulson, what is our monitoring process for not just commercial truck wash? It's the same permit that applies across the board, is my understanding.
If I could just jump in, Mr. Kelly. So Tim, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe that we have in our pretreatment standards, there's a definition of a significant industrial user versus a non-significant regular industrial user, as you might call it. And I think that definition is at 25,000 gallons a day. Is that right, Tim, of discharge?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so if we know that they're going to discharge at least 25,000 gallons a day, then they have to get an actual permit from us. If it's going to be less than that, then they're just subject to the pretreatment standards, but there's no actual permit, and there's no actual active monitoring. The monitoring would occur as part of regular staff processes at the plant. And if there's increases in one of these pollutants that they noticed during the monitoring, we would start to investigate at that time.
So the monitoring is done at the plant, not on the discharge of that specific entity with the permit.
Yes.
I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt, but may I address that, please?
Yes, please.
Now, the permit, I'm going to put this generally speaking, most permits are given to an industrial discharge. You have domestic discharge and industrial discharge. And so industrial discharge, the city will grant the permit, and normally the permit is not specific to a wash, it's to the general industries that will be in that area. And most are built around your pH of 5 to 9 pH. Your oil and grease is 100 to 150 milligrams per liter. And your they will check for your COD, which is your chemical oxygen demand, and this, that, and the other. These are all built into your permit that is granted to any industrial discharge location. And so those permits will be, that permit will be given to, or will be assigned to loads once they apply for it, which I'm sure they probably have applied for it by now. It's normally a pretty good length of time between requesting a permit and granting a permit.
Mr. King, on average, how many gallons of water does a commercial truck wash utilize within a day? Or discharge in the system in a
That's
day?
a very good question, and it's hard to answer that question. On that particular wash program, if they wash a tractor trailer truck, they go to reclaim approximately 50 to 70% of that water, and they will probably discharge an amount of about 100 to 120 gallons per tractor trailer wash. And so if they're washing, say 5 to 10 trucks an hour, so you're talking about 1,000 gallons or so an hour. And I doubt very seriously they'll be able to do that kind of volume, but that's kind of gives you an idea of a tractor trailer wash, which they wash a lot of things besides tractor trailer, smaller vehicles, which will give you a smaller discharge than that. So normally they will probably be under your category of 25,000 gallons a day. They may be close, but I think they'll be under it.
Their application to the IEPA for a permit, states that their max discharge, I think I don't remember the exact number, but it was 16 to 18,000 gallons per day was their maximum discharge.
That sounds about right. Yep.
With that application based on the ordinance, there would be no permit, no monitoring done for that type of a facility. Am I correct in that?
I believe that's correct, unless a problem is.
We would have, right, the ordinance gives, the right for the village, if they see a problem, to go and take samples or request samples be taken from the discharge if they suspect a problem with the operation of the site.
And let's say they find a problem with the site. Not that there would be, I'm not making any assumptions, but in the use case that you're talking about, they do the investigation, they find that there's a problem. Since there's no official permit that is issued on this, what's the remediation or the requirement on the company to fix that? Or what's the potential penalty?
I think they're still, required to comply with the ordinance, and there's provisions in the ordinance for, enforcement and action.
So similar to we're going to send you a certified letter. We're going to wait a month and a half. We're going to.
Mr. Baselli.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President, Mr. Trustee. In section, I believe 8-4-10 in our village code, it discusses injunctive relief. If I am in the right section, again, this is just off the book and it may be amended from that point in time, from this point in time. But we can bring an action in equitable court in Kane County. This is still in Kane County. And I'll just read it. Whenever the superintendent finds that a user has violated or continues to violate any provision of this article, any general or specific permit or order issued hereunder, or any other pre-treatment standard or requirement, the village may petition the local circuit court for the issuance of a temporary or permanent injunction as appropriate, which will restrain or compel the specific performance of the permit, order, or other requirement imposed by this article on the activities of the user. The village may also seek such other remedy as may be appropriate for legal and or equitable relief, including requirement for the user to conduct environmental remediation. A petition for injunctive relief shall not be a bar against or prerequisite for the village taking any other action against the user. There are also civil penalty provisions. Again, trustee, I have not researched this in so much that I do have the code in front of me now. So what I would ask is if you just give us 2 weeks, by the time we meet again, I can give you the exact remedies for this, let's say the theoretical infraction on this. But from reading this, I also want to check and make sure that it hasn't been updated since April of 2008. But in reading this, and it is standard in practice, and I'm sure that our village engineer would agree with me, that usually you bring a civil action in court, you make them stop, you make them fix everything, and then they got to pay all the bills.
So who's gonna monitor the amount if you don't have to pull a permit until you get over 20,000 gallons? Who's gonna monitor the usage to see if they're in compliance with staying under that permit amount? Who monitors that?
May I interject there? I would imagine that you're talking about the 25,000 gallon permit. That's a different permit than a discharge permit. I would imagine the POTW will want to grant them a discharge permit regardless of what the amount of discharge is, whether it's under the 25,000 or not. So that will be a monitoring source when they issue that permit. I don't know of any receiving POTW that does not issue an industrial wastewater permit for discharging into their system.
Can you
Yeah.
explain POTW? I'm sorry, I don't understand that.
I'm sorry, that's a publicly owned water treatment system. That's a technical term. I'm sorry. Sewer system.
But that's what Mr. Ray was talking about, that there is no permit required under 25,000 gallons of discharge per day.
In your entity, there's not one? Okay. I've not heard of that before, but that's good if they don't issue one. That's fine.
From a business perspective, I can see that, but it's also telling that you said you've never heard of somebody not having it under.
Yeah.
Oh. And at 25,000 based on 150 gallons, just a quick math, that's 167 trucks washed a day. Anything over that would be, on an estimate of 150 gallons a truck, would be over the 25,000.
You know, it's also important to know that they do get a water bill, right? So we do know how much water we're sending in. So, I
But
mean,
that's not what we measure.
no, I understand, but that would give us some kind of clue as to whether or not they're over 25,000, right? Per day, like if we notice that there's stuff at the water treatment plant, there's outflow tests and all that stuff that they do on a regular basis. It's also a manual process. It's not an automatic truck wash. It's a bunch of guys washing trucks, so.
And my questions, just to be clear, aren't necessarily in regards to the ordinance that
Sure.
we have here. It's that creating a zoning variance. This isn't, I mean.
Right.
We're creating so you don't have to apply for a special use permit within these zones. We're not really focused on the other side of it, which is the ordinance of the discharge and the permitting in those areas, right? We're not talking about that. We're just saying it's no longer a special use permit. Because to the point that was made, I think in the last meeting, and Mr. King, you're involved with this, so, you know, you've talked about is that we currently have a truck stop that is going to be adding a truck wash facility. So it's not that they're not allowed within the community, it's do we allow a standalone?
Right.
Within certain zones, and I think we've kind of, it seems like the question or the conversation is now, how do we, if we allow this, how do we enforce it? And I'm not sure that we have a mechanism.
I'll just state that when Mark Montgomery researched or reviewed all of these treatment standards, he was very adamant that we don't have problems with industrial users right now. We're such a large system right now that he really does not believe that anything could affect us so greatly that it would become a problem that would go unnoticed. I'll put it that way.
To be completely honest, I'm confused by that statement, and I know he's not here, so I'm not questioning you. I know it's like the game of telephone, right? But the comment was made that the system is underutilized at the current time. What happens when it's not?
It's a fair question.
And so, you know, I mean, that was the comment based on our expert in the field. I'm not trying to question our staff that's not here. I'm not trying to be, but at the end of the day, I'm a little concerned that it was communicated with this board that we're underutilizing it now. And so we're okay with it now. And so my hang up with it is what happens when we're not.
I think your city engineer should answer that question. He should be able to answer that right now.
Mr.
He knows
Wilson?
the percentage of usage.
Well, sorry, what was the specific question?
The comment was that our water treatment employees or director is not concerned with the level of chemicals as they are written in this ordinance now, based on the fact that our system's underutilized. And so that they need these types of chemicals to offset what's already going on. And I'm paraphrasing severely, but that was the comment. So what happens when we're not underutilizing our system and we're up to capacity and that kind of stuff? I mean, does he have to spend more chemicals to treat this kind of stuff? Or are we then going to have a problem where in 10 years when all the users are online, let's just say, and then it's, oh my gosh, now we got to do something with this discharge ordinance and bothering businesses that have already been here for a while? I'm just trying to play it out in my head, the long game.
Yeah, I don't know if I can answer that off the top of my head. I'd have to talk with Mark, specifically what he was referring to.
Mr. Paulson, what's our current percentage usage of the system? Estimated. Estimate.
50%, I believe, somewhere around there.
Does your firm have any projections of what year approximately we'll reach near capacity at the existing plant?
Yes, we do. In fact, that's, part of the utility master planning study that we've done. I don't have that in front of me, but I believe within the next 2 months or so, we're going to be bringing that presentation to the board and review all those items.
Is it safe to assume, before we get that when the current housing developments that are approved are fully complete, that we will be at or near capacity without any other industrial or commercial developments?
Well, we are considering in our analysis all of the potential future developments, including, a full development around this, commercial industrial area at I-90 in our analysis. So, and that includes, certain, upgrades to the plant. So yeah, the village will not reach capacity in our projections out through, I think they're to 2040 or 2050.
Okay.
I don't know about you guys, I'm still not at the level of comfort that I would like to be at. I'm sorry.
I have a lot of questions.
Have
Okay,
it.
so, Trustee Kelly, I had a question about something you said. You said something about 150 gallons per truck and something about 80% reuse, and then you said something about an estimated number of
Oh,
trucks.
so Mr.
Could
King,
you
yeah, Mr.
state-
King talked about and Mr. King, you will need to correct me because I'm sure I will mess up these numbers. That 70 to 80% of the water utilized to wash a truck is reclaimed. It doesn't get discharged into a system. And
Yeah,
then your estimate, was it that your estimate of discharge per truck was between 100 to 150 gallons?
that's, you're asking a very good question, but it's awfully hard to answer because of the wash process. But yeah, we try to figure in anywhere from 50 to 70% reclaim, which is if you use a total of say 300 gallons of water, that we try to recycle at least 50% of that to be reused on another vehicle, and hopefully we try to get around 70% of that water to be reused on another vehicle. And
Okay.
so one way.
That's where I was getting those numbers from, Trustee Floater, was that if it's 300 and even on a low side, let's say it's just a 50% recapture, that's 150 gallons that go into the sewer system. The public owned treatment works system per truck. So what I did is I wanted to know how many trucks could be washed under the 25,000 gallon limit before a permit is needed. And the math showed that it was like 166.6, so I rounded up to 167.
Okay.
So a facility could wash 166 trucks theoretically, before hitting the need for a permit at 25,000 gallons being discharged into the system per day.
Now,
And-
the washes that Love have in operation now, they do not run 24 hours a day. They're running, I think they're running till about 8 or 9 o'clock at night, then open back up in the mornings at 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning. So so far, of course, I have no control over that, but that's what they're doing right now. It's not having a 24-hour operation.
Yeah, and it sounds like, Mr. King, that theoretically it would be tough for them to hit that 167 truck limit within a day.
It would be, yeah, it would be.
Okay, so Mr. King, approximately how many trucks would you guess might be washed at this particular location a year from now if this were approved?
So we're talking 7 minutes per truck. About the quickest time we can wash one is about 7 minutes. And so we're talking in an hour's time, we're talking 6 to 7 trucks per hour. And so if they're open 12 hours, I'm not a mathematical whiz here, but 7 times 12 is what's 86. That would be probably around, I say a maximum of 100 trucks per day, I would say, that they would be washing. And
And
they run, they've been running two.
Single bay, correct?
No, they're running two bays. And so even at that, it's going to be hard to wash over 100 to 120 trucks per day at the maximum, because they have to take time between trucks to speak to the driver, find out what it is that they're wanting washed, how they're going to wash it, what they can wash. They have to inspect the truck before it goes into the wash bay. So there's going to be intervals there that they have to, they're not going to be able to wash trucks back to back to back. They have to kind of space them out between there. So far in the locations they have in operations, they do a lot of pickup trucks, which is a very quick and a very small amount of water. They're doing a lot of what we call straight trucks that are in 20, 25 feet lengths that are taking a lot less time and a lot less water. So there's a big combination of different vehicles they're washing at these locations. And so they're believe they're monitoring everything from a cost standpoint and from an environmental standpoint as they wash these vehicles. They've got a lot of things in process that even in our reverse osmosis water we use in the rinse, we're reusing the water in that to as part of the recycle system. So we're trying to generate as much recycle as we possibly can and still get a clean vehicle.
Thank you, sir. So more questions. And I don't expect anybody who's in this room right now to be able to answer them, but I just want these questions on record. How is our system going to treat phosphorus from 50 milligrams per liter down to 0.1 milligrams per liter, which is what it needs to be when it exits our system?
Also, should be able to answer that question. You think?
Well, I have a lot more questions that deal with that, so. No, I just want to keep going because that's part A of the question. So then with our system, are you dealing with runoff from our farm fields and the lawn fertilization? How much additional cost will the village incur to process the additional contaminant? And given that it costs $42 to $60 per pound to treat phosphorus, will our water treatment rates have to go up to be able to process this additional contaminant, given that that's 1,500 gallons per day that we're pulling for just washing trucks? Are we going to have enough water in our, I just forget the word for, aquifer, thank you, I mean, how much longer is our water going to last? Even if we're reclaiming and reusing water, that's 1,500 gallons per day of new water. So that's,
Yeah, I'm putting together a plan that I've asked them to put together. They should come to us in the next month or so to give us an in-depth training on aquifers, where we get our water, how long they're going to last, how long it takes to recharge and all that kind of stuff. Because we always get the answer, we don't have a problem. And we keep hearing on the news, these other communities that do. And so realistically, we pull our water from an aquifer that goes under several states, and it's a big one. So there's not a whole lot of fear from the professionals as far as our specific case. But my point exactly is, so
Yeah.
they are planning to come to this board with an in-depth presentation about where we get water and that kind of stuff, and how long it takes to recharge. Because I'd like the aquifer conversation to, I don't want to say die down a little bit, but I think but I want to know what we're dealing with.
I want to have.
And so, and that's what I'm getting at. So DEI has agreed in the next couple of weeks to come in, or next couple of meetings to come in and specifically address the aquifer conversation for this board and the public.
Because it's not as important for me as it will be for my kids.
Or their kids.
So I would like to actually have some numbers because, a clean truck would be lovely, but so would having some drinking water for my kids and my grandkids. So I would just like to have some hard numbers.
The chemicals that Love's we're providing to Love's, we use a very low phosphate level in that with chemicals. But the reason we do that, of course, number one, phosphates is a problem for some areas, but mostly in agricultural areas where you have your phosphate problems with runoff from your fertilizers and things like this. And so we try to minimize any usage on that that we can in our chemicals. And we have discussed that. Matter of fact, we provide chemicals to the Ryder rental company and their trucks, and they're really been working with us on trying to get that phosphate level down to a level where it does not add to any problems that a facility may have on that.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
I do want to clarify too, what is going in at Love's is not a part of this zoning discussion, just because it's already allowed and permitted. So if Love's wanted to do it, if
Right.
TA did one, if Road Ranger did one, they all are permitted because they can add on to an existing structure. This is really that standalone.
Correct. We had a relationship with Mr. King, and he offered to come.
No, I
as
think
one of the experts.
his memo has been extremely educational.
Absolutely.
Thank
But
you.
it's still a discussion that we need to have.
I do have another question, but I don't want to stop here.
I don't know. I just threw them all out there.
Mr. Vasselli.
Yes.
Within the regulations, so in Mr. King's memo, and I'm only talking about this now because it's become evident that we are the regulating body in this case.
Sure.
In his memo, it says the following is regulated by either local, state, or federal regulators, and since we know now this is local, it says the volume of spent wash water discharge. And then there's kind of discussions around how that works. The next one on page 3 says regulating the time needed to wash the vehicle. C says regulating the chemicals in the wash process. I'm going to make an assumption, which may be a bad thing to make, but I'm going to make an assumption that our current ordinance does not address any of these type of regulations.
I do not have the memo.
It's specifically volume of water spent, volume of spent wash water discharge, regulating the time needed to wash the vehicle, regulating the chemicals in the wash process. And the reason why I'm making that assumption with Vasselli is just because this is a new motion for us, and it's,
Sure.
I don't believe we would have had commercial truck or commercial watch regulations automatically pre-built. If we did, good on us for being way ahead of that.
Jimmy, it's not in the packet. It was in the supplemental information sent via email.
Yeah.
I've just looked at this code a lot, and I'll tell you, I have not seen that.
Okay.
I'm not an attorney, but
I think it's a safe assumption, but if you've been diving in, you're like, yeah, those don't ring a bell. I'm gonna take care
yeah,
of
we
it.
don't have commercial truck wash regulations.
Josh is right. He's a good reader. There is an interesting portion of this that there's two things. One, Article 844B gives our superintendent additional discretion over monitoring and regulatory issues, which is something that he can exercise. Furthermore, and obviously you guys are all vetting out the issues. When you read the language of 845 versus 844A1, the language in 844A1, which talks about the licensure, talks about no significant industrial user shall discharge wastewater. Now, there's a distinction under 845, and it says when requested by the superintendent, a user must within any time period specified in such request, and if no time specified within 30 days thereafter, data request, submit a report of the information on the nature and characteristics of its wastewater. So if you notice, there is an omission of that descriptive clause, which is important there, because I think that the regulatory authority of the superintendent extends over, in addition to those people who he licenses as an significant industrial user.
But it doesn't say that it would require a license, just that if it's not somebody that would be licensed, he also has the authority to, or he or she.
She or she,
has
the
the
superintendent.
Yeah, the superintendent has the authority to request a description of what the use is.
Correct, but also superintendent may require any other user to obtain a wastewater discharge permit as necessary to carry out the purposes of this article. And that's from 844A2.
Okay.
So the jurisdiction of the superintendent could be discretionary and unilaterally extended to say, I want this, even though it's, what's the number, Josh?
25,000.
24,999. I still want this person under. And let's say it's 12,000, half. Could still say, if we're coming close to that number keyed off the 166, that we're hitting that number, I want a report for every 30 months. Even if they aren't regulated as a significant industrial user. Josh, is that your read too?
I agree.
Okay. And again, I just want you all, this is new and it's very thick and it is, it may even be updated since April 2008, but it is, it's a very well drafted ordinance in so much it gives you teeth, even where it gives you flexibility for a business user and teeth to ensure that the people of the village are protected.
Does anybody have any other questions about this? How are we feeling? Are we ready to vote?
I mean, this is about as vetted as you're gonna get.
Trustee Kelly?
Well, I think the zoning variance is written well. I think that we've had great discussions. Mr. King's memo is good. My only concern that has come up as a result of all of this information is I don't know that the village has set itself up to be the regulator in this case. And indeed, they need to be the regulator. And so that's my concern at this point.
And Mr. Kelly, if you wanted to, we could come back with, and Josh would be fantastic with this. I mean, you can ask for more, but we could come, if you want to pass the land use tonight, and then we come back with the regulatory changes in article or chapter 8, article 8.4. We can do that in 2 weeks. I am not pressing any opinion. I'm giving you an option that if you wanted to deal with this as a land use issue and bifurcate it to regulatory issue.
If we were to do something like that, I would ask that the land use issue has something that states that there would be a timeline of compliance rather than grandfathering in. Because if, let's say we pass this and somebody quickly puts in for it, and then we go back to the regulatory side of it, as was stated in the replies to some of the questions I had, they would technically be grandfathered and not be held accountable to regulations or rules. That was specific to the PFAS information, but it applies across.
So on page 12, trustee, there is a section.
Page 12 in the packet?
I'm sorry, page 12 in the packet.
Okay.
There is a section that refers to section or titled section 4, not titled, but it's given section 4. The ordinance shall take effect upon its passage and approval according to law. We could kick that out. We could make that September 1st. We could make that August. I don't know when the second meeting in August is. I was thinking an arbitrary date that I knew we would be able to at least get 2 meetings in case there was debate over the regulations on this.
Which would then get us time to get the regulatory issues.
And business
in line,
owners, yep.
And also give time to get the water study results that Trustee Fodor was talking about. Is that accurate? Mr. Paulson, when is EEI set to deliver the results of the study?
We don't have we're ready to go whenever the village wants us to. We have not established a meeting date with staff for when we're going to give the presentation.
And the results are done.
They are done pending. We were going to have one final meeting with staff to go over everything in the draft presentation before we went to the board, but we could certainly do it within that, within the next 2 months. Yeah, we could certainly do it in the next month or 2.
We could say September 30th, and that would give us all of August and all of September. Right, that would give us both of our meetings for the aquifer conversation, for the water report study, to get the governance part of this, right, the regulation part, right?
Our meetings would be 9/7 and then 9/21. So September the 7th and September the 21st are the 2 September
Oh,
meetings.
so then you could say September 22nd.
Second, yeah.
And that would give us 4 meetings to get the rest of this nailed out.
One other thing, if I may, we have an industry expert who's volunteered his time to be here with us. If we push this out to September the 22nd, would it chill anyone from coming here? Would someone be so deterred because we're asking for a little bit more time on this because we want these additional regulations, or no?
Mr.
Mr. King?
I'm sorry. you guys, if you need for me to attend or answer more questions at any time, just let me know and I'll be more than happy to attend or answer questions at any time.
Let me ask somebody else different. The gentleman that spoke that was considering a
No, it's just trying to
standalone
get the
facility.
regulations right, that's all.
Would the village taking this motion, if we were to pass this tonight and say, but we want to give some time to make sure we have the regulations set and that we get the water study treatment, would that have deterred a business decision in your opinion?
No.
If you don't mind me asking.
No,
Sorry. Not to put you on the spot.
No, I don't mind. So your question is, repeat that question for me one more time.
That right now, what we're discussing is the potential of passing the zoning change with, rather than saying it takes effect immediately, that it would take effect on September 22nd to give the village time to ensure that since we are considered the regulator, that our regulations are set up properly and that EEI, our engineering firm, will be able to give their comprehensive water study report results to the board.
To answer that for myself, I would say, no, that would not hinder my decision to do anything. That I would be okay with it. Again, my goal is to be a partner of the villages. My goal is the same goal that you have. It essentially is the same. So we want to make sure that we're all in agreement and that we're all complying with whatever the village request is. So no, that would not, if that was me, no, it would not hinder.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And from my perspective, you wouldn't even be through the planning yet. You guys would get all of your ducks in a row. In a project like this, it would still be going through planning. And then building and actually implementing is probably 8 months, 12 months out.
So why don't we do that then? Why don't we amend section 4 to include September 22nd, 2023? And then as an action item for staff, let's work on the scheduling with the water reports and making sure that the governance of this would be in effect. Is the board comfortable moving forward if we do that?
For the record, though, I mean, I hate to do things in pieces, and if it's not gonna go into effect anyway, I would just assume wait until everything's all done and do it at once, than to do something piecemeal, and then if we don't get what we want, and we don't like the results that we see, then we've already got something passed. So I would say wait until we get all the reports back.
Very good.
What do you guys want to do? Whatever motion, I mean, you guys can make a motion now. I'll entertain motions. We can table. What do you want to do? I'm leaving it up to the board here. I cannot make a motion to do anything. So you guys are going to have to
I would
decide.
move to table it until we get the results back that the board is asking for and wants, so that we can make a more educated decision.
That's a motion. I'll second that. I have, do I need to do a roll call because we're tabling it?
You have questions, comments?
Questions, comments? No.
I have a comment. I understand the tabling. I just disagree with doing things in the right order. My concern is having staff spend a lot of time on creating regulations and updating sorry, it's been a long day, updating the regulatory rules around commercial truck washes without knowing if we're actually going to allow commercial truck washes.
One point of order, if I may, Mr. Trustee, Mr. President, Mr. Deputy Clerk, motions to table are not debatable under Robert's rules. So while your question will remain in the record, they are generally not debatable. You motion second. So Trustee Kelly's question of whether you want to spend the money after you go forward from one to the other, really shouldn't be debated. I mean,
Okay.
no, and again,
It's on the record and I'll leave it at that.
And I don't want to be overly formal. You guys are a great board. So handle it how you will, but I I have to tell you what the rules of parliamentary procedure are.
I appreciate it.
Roll call. Mr. Kelly?
No.
Mr. Coe?
What's the,
Is the motion
Whether
to
we
table?
table on this thing or we?
no,
Mr. Mott?
Motion is to,
Motion is to table. Affirmative vote will move to table it. A negative vote, a vote of nay, will not vote it. And motioning or seconding means nothing relative to the vote.
Mr. Mott, you vote no. Ms. Palastrellini?
Yes.
Ms. Fodor?
No.
Motion failed. Item is still on
So,
the
so
table.
then I'll entertain a motion to approve ordinance 23-07 with the amendment to section 4, changing the date and with instructions, with a note that the staff should work through getting the water information that we've requested and work through the regulatory regulations before this date that we set, which is September 22nd.
Second,
Questions, comments, concerns?
just a comment.
I'm so sorry about the last.
No, it's okay. I can say it now. I know it. We can, just to verify, Mr. Vasselli.
Yes,
If on September 21st, staff hasn't created the regulations, we don't for some reason, God forbid, have the water report,
correct.
we can put onto the agenda to have this rescinded.
Absolutely. We could have it rescinded or we could have it further amended and push it out to no later than October 31st.
Okay,
We have flexibility.
all right, thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
Point of order, has there been a motion to amend the second of it and the amendment to section 4?
It doesn't need to be one because the motion was made. The document is presented was not, the document is presented was with the date. What we have before you is a template of the ordinance with an effective date under section 4 of, as approved and set forth by law. So if it was moved with that language, then yes, we would need to amend it or somehow withdraw it and reintroduce it. But because the motion was made with the document as being understood as amended with that motion, there needs to be none.
With the effective date of September 23rd,
Correct.
2020.
And the understanding that staff, including legal counsel, will work with staff, who's done a great job on this, to make sure everything is in line.
Mr. Deputy Clerk, call the roll, please.
Mr. Coe?
aye,
Mr. Mott?
Aye.
Ms. Palastrellini?
No.
Ms. Fodor?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
All right,
Motion passed 4-1.
Okay, Ms. Lyons, what's next?
All right, next on the agenda is a resolution approving the intergovernmental agreement between Community Unit School District 300, extending the school resource officer program.
Can I step in just a second? Mr. King, thank you so much for being here. I'm sorry.
Oh,
All
no,
right.
it's fine.
Sorry, I should have done that first.
No problem at all.
Okay, so do you have anything to add about the agreement? I mean, it was all in the packet. Does the board have any questions about it? Or do you have any details?
Maybe just to reiterate, there was an agreement that the village operated under from 2017 that named a school resource officer to be assigned to the high school with a presence in the middle school. In 2018, there was a second agreement actually placing the school resource officer at the middle school. So this agreement combines the two together into a single agreement that is for a 1-year term that is automatic.
so we will have one officer stationed at the middle school and one officer stationed at the high school.
That's correct.
This is an agreement that the school district is pursuing. Am I correct? This is not something we're pursuing. This is a change that they want to clean up their paperwork, if you will, combining the agreements.
Yeah, they're kind of, I would say at best haphazardly renewed or extended with some various terminology changes. This time we are calling it a school resource officer. In prior agreements, it was called a school liaison officer. So, there's some minor changes, but no major changes in this compared to our other two agreements.
So I'd like to ask Chief his opinion on one of the questions I had asked. And thank you to staff. I know I sent a lot of questions and I apologize because there's a lot of information in this packet of multiple. witnesses. Chief, we just went through a lot. I shouldn't say we, you and staff went through a lot of work to find an agreement with FOP on our new contract and new standards. And I know school resource officers were part of that contract, or the definitions in those cases. What are your thoughts on this being a year-to-year contract and not mapping to our union agreement that we have, where we also talk about school resource officers?
Well, since the collective bargaining unit or agreement is a 4-year agreement, I guess my opinion would be that a 1-year agreement automatically renewable is okay because with the 4-year agreement with the CBA, the school resource officers aren't automatically called out. It covers, the CBA covers 8-hour employees, which is basically what these employees are. And I don't really think it matters because the CBA is completely silent on SROs. I mean, it doesn't call them out specifically. It doesn't identify them. They're employees of the police department. They're sworn officers, right. And so. Yeah, I don't know if that answered your question exactly.
It does.
Yeah.
I also know that you look at your long-term staffing plans, and the way I read the agreement is that the school district or the village, either party can cancel this from year to year.
Yeah.
It just seemed if we were to have an agreement mapped to the other agreements we have for the sworn officers and the force, the patrol officers, the ones that fill the SROs, that it would allow for better long-term planning from an administrative side as well as what is your staffing needs? Because if it gets canceled next year, but you hired in to have 2 SROs at 2 schools, they now transition to non-SRO roles. How does that affect your staffing? That was one of the reasons why I asked that question, was just in the executive seat that you have, is that not a concern?
I don't think it's a concern that we can really. I think it's one of those concerns that we would have to address at that time. We would have to make decisions on whether we were going to add staffing and add authorized strength to our add full-time non-compensated positions, I guess would be the best, So if I got these officers back, I would love to have the officers back on our, as full-time officers that are serving the community. But with 66% of their salary being paid by the school district, we'd have to make a decision. Are we going to add to our authorized strength? Or are we going to, what would happen would be that we would reduce our authorized strength probably through attrition. I would say, as people leave, we wouldn't replace them. Right. I can't say that it wouldn't be a layoff, but it probably would not be a layoff. It probably would be through attrition.
I think we should, I think that this should be tied directly to the CBA.
In what way?
You have a 4-year agreement with the union. Tell District 300, who's had their way with us forever, they're supposed to be putting an entrance for all you people that have been on board for a while. Down here, they were supposed to put a road in. How many years ago, Mike? 8, 10?
I don't know, we fought with them pretty hard.
Yeah. They've had their way with us. Most of the call outs for alarms are District 300. I think we should tie this, rather than do this dance year to year, we should tie this to the CBA.
The issue
4-year
is-
contract, 4-year agreement with these guys.
The issue is I don't necessarily know that they're gonna listen to us as far as dictating as far as the length of the term of the contract.
What are they gonna do? They're gonna go out and hire a rent-a-cop?
They threatened in the past to just not do an agreement with us, just do it with the county, which they're within their full right to do. And so I'd rather have one of our officers in the schools. I'm sorry, I'm with you 100% because to your point, they have kind of raked us over the coals. But I would rather have one of our officers in the schools than have a King County, no offense to King County if you're watching, but then have a King County sheriff in the schools.
President Reed, I agree with you, and I think that the officers that your team has had in there is so well respected by the kids in those schools and the students that it would be a shame to have them pulled out of there. I also agree that it's a shame that we're at that point. The only other question I have for you would be, is there ever a need for, and I'm just thinking back to some of the discussions we've had over the past 3 years, is there ever a need for an SRO at the elementary level? Even if it's shared between multiple elementaries?
The current SROs handle, I mean, they do cover those elementary schools. So they, we have like the officer that's assigned to Hampshire Middle School. If there's a need for at the elementary school, they'll go there. And the same thing up north with Big Timber. The high school SRO will go over there. So I guess we haven't seen a direct need for it as far as, handling problems or calls for service. But when we take the SRO out of the high school to go over to Big Timber Elementary, it's leaving that high school uncovered, so, would it be beneficial? I would say yes. I guess that's the interesting.
Since it's year to year, it'd be easy to amend for next year's contract, to say potentially a third for one SRO to share the 3 elementary schools in the area, rather than pull, like you said, from the high school or middle school to go cover.
I mean, that would require an additional person on the police department.
Right.
And my staffing would not allow us to.
No, understood. It would be an open rec that would have to be filled.
Yeah.
So, if we were to amend this before we pass it, let's just say, and get the 4-year, and put the 4-year in to tie it into the contract, we would have authority to do that, but they wouldn't have to sign it if they didn't approve of our changes, correct?
We could propose additional changes, that you would like to have included in the contract and present it to them, and they could decline.
Is there a way that we can present this in a motion to say that we'd really like it to be 4 years, but if not, we'll fall back onto the 1? No, I understand. Well, what I don't want to have happen is us not do our job and not have an agreement in place.
My comment wasn't.
No, I understand. I'm just saying.
It was just, if that came to me, I would say, okay, thanks, it's 1.
Yeah.
No, I understand. I would just.
Could I say a comment?
Sure.
Does it matter to have a 4-year contract if there's a 30-day cancellation clause?
I guess it doesn't.
No, and that's why I think that we should propose it.
For me, it's not that big of an issue. I think I would be more inclined to trying to propose whether it's for this coming, well, it couldn't be for this coming school year, but get it into a contract for next school year so that you have time to recruit.
You're talking about a third.
About a third SRO.
That'll be up to them though, because they are on the line for 66%.
Well, that's what I'm saying, it's part
Yeah.
of the negotiation for the next year, since it's year to year. But that, I would also be curious, and thank you to the staff that did some of the investigation into this. How many other elementary schools throughout District 300 have an SRO presence?
So part of the survey that I did, if you will, of the communities and the sheriff's departments that you asked me to look into, the only one that really is covering directly elementary schools is the McHenry County Sheriff's Office. But they do not have agreements with any of the school districts. So all of their high schools and middle schools are within village or city limits. And so therefore, the sheriff's department is covering some elementary schools that are, I'll say, on the fringe. But they do not have direct agreements with any of the districts for those officers. They simply rotate amongst the schools that they're involved with. I can't remember exactly what the title was. I didn't bring that with me, but like a community relations officer that has the training for a school resource officer.
So just because of my history here on the board and my history with 300, originally they just had it in high schools. And then in recent years, they rolled it out to the middle schools. And because years ago, it was just middle schools on the other side of the district, and then they rolled it out across the district. across the district, every middle school gets a SRO. To my knowledge, there's no SRO placed or dedicated specifically to an elementary school within.
Maybe it's just a conversation for the future, but one that, I just know we've had lots of conversation of events that have happened everywhere. And it's also when we see on social media, our local officers in the schools and even elementary or at the preschool reading, the kids really enjoy the officers being there for the most part. I'm sure there are children that do not. But for the most part, it seems to be a good community impact.
Yeah, I don't.
At least I would say it's worth a conversation in the future, not necessarily for this contract here, but.
Ms. Lyons, can I ask from when you called, you said McHenry, the sheriff is came in, and you said there was no agreement. Does that mean that it was paid for 100% by the sheriff's
That's correct.
office? Okay, and none by the school district?
That's it.
Okay, thanks.
They did, in the research, find that all the places where they do have agreements, it is the 66% coverage.
I thought the Huntley thing was interesting too. So Huntley has an agreement with Huntley School District, so, but their agreement is only a 50-50.
Yeah, and one of the reasons why I asked is in doing some research to understand this, Chicago Unified is 100%. And so that's where I was like, okay, 66, the normal is, I'm seeing a huge
So-
school district at 100%. Now, they have some other issues they're dealing with that one, but
Pre 2017 agreement, we were actually at 66.66 or 2/3 as the percentage, but it did go down and it's, stayed at that 66% level. And the board at the time thought that decrease in funding for the village was well worth it, keeping the officers in the schools. And honestly, when the middle school officer came, like we assigned or, agreed to assign an officer there was probably, I believe, almost an entire semester length of time before we had the staffing available to send to the middle school, so.
Which is how I know about the Kane County conversation, because that was a big part of their conversation at the time, was if we were gonna fulfill our obligation, they were gonna go to the county to get an officer at the school because we weren't fulfilling our obligation. So I'm 100% with you, Trustee Cove, as far as they could be a better partner in a lot of different aspects, but I don't want to go to the county on this. I'd rather have our guys, our guys and girls there.
I think it would be important to note, Trustee Kelly, that many districts, including D300, maybe 46 are unit districts, but they occupy not just one county and straddle multiple police municipalities. And so, it would be very difficult for them to have that, unlike Huntley, which is one. It's a very different relationship. So
100%.
I'm guessing then too, does District 300 then go into Cook County?
They touch.
they can.
112 square miles. All right, I will entertain a motion to approve resolution 23-12, a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement with School District 300.
So
Questions, comments, concerns? Mr. Deputy Clerk, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Mott?
Aye.
Ms. Palastrellini?
Aye.
Ms. Fodor?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Mr. Coe?
No,
Motion passed 4-1.
Ms. Lyons, item C, please.
Yes, so we're asking your consideration of approval of a resolution authorizing the disposal of obsolete police department equipment and property.
This is nothing exciting. This is what we do every couple of years. We clean out our closets when we're getting rid of equipment we don't need any longer. There seems to be a lot of stuff on here from the police department, probably left over from the radio changes, I'm guessing, for when the county went digital.
Radio changes, a recent upgrade in squad cars.
I mean, we're getting rid of a VCR, for Pete's sake. Are you sure we don't need this?
I have a Radio Shack realistic outdoor PA system. I don't know, circa, I have no idea. All the wires are taped. So that's probably the oldest piece, but the radios, I did verify that they're they're old enough, they were using them just, I think at the beginning of last year, but they're old enough that they're really have no value.
We had a lot of trouble with them anyhow.
Yeah. The laptops, again, here, they don't really have a lot of value. But that's why we actually, Commissioner George Brust brought to me that the charity through the church, through St. Romeo, to send them for use in a library in Nigeria. They're gonna put some money into them actually, because we're gonna take the hard drives out. And then they're just gonna put new hard drives in. We're doing that for security reasons and any data or anything.
Does anyone have any other questions about the disposal of obsolete property? Hearing none, I will enter.
Hold on, so Mr. Chief. Chief, with the recycling, I mean, I'm all for donating it. And we've spent a lot of money in all the new equipment that we've done. And I know this says to recycling or to put on online auction, but it's a lot of equipment. And I thought, if we're gonna pretty much get rid of it and not get anything back from it, are there other police departments that might get some use out of it other than that radio that's from Circle 19?
So I mean, I could go through the items one by one. I don't think so.
Okay,
Some of the docking stations maybe, but the docking stations they're very, actually, I think Mr. Reed had some personal knowledge of this, but
They're very well used.
they're very well used and they're very,
They're
specific to the computer. So even if we change out computers, like when we just put the new computers in the squad, we had to completely change the docking stations.
okay.
Respectfully, as I look through this list, I look over the stuff that we're getting rid of, and we don't get rid of anything unless it's dead. And so, I mean, to be honest with you, I don't know how this school, I think it's in Nigeria, is going to use these laptops in the library. I just don't see how it's gonna be cost effective for them to do this, especially because we're taking hard drives out of them, so we don't destroy, so we can destroy the data. But as I look over the list, if you look at all these Verizon wireless pucks, my guess is that 8600 L is a 3G model, and we're past 3G to 4G and 5G. So I don't, just respectfully, I just don't see anything on this list of any value. I mean, if you wanted to offer the list up to somebody, I don't necessarily see anybody taking them.
I think they're 4G, but they're free. I mean, they literally give them to you.
I don't really see, I mean, the radios, the problem is with the radios, most of our old stuff was analog, and now we switched over to digital, and all these other departments are doing the same, so it might get them by for a little while, but heck, even batteries are expensive for these things. So, again, I'm not trying to discount your good nature in this.
No, I'm just asking because it's a lot of materials and then also smaller departments that might not have the money for some things, might be using some of those older pieces of equipment and might find it useful. But if in your discussions with all the organizations that you belong to, you don't know of anyone, then that's fine. I just wanted to.
I will entertain a motion to approve resolution 23-13, authorizing the disposal of obsolete property.
Second.
Questions, comments, concerns? Mr. Deputy Clerk, can you call the roll, please?
Ms. Palestrina?
Aye.
Ms. Fodor?
No.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Mr. Coe?
Aye.
Mr. Mott?
Aye.
Motion passed 4-1.
Okay, Ms. Lyons, this is a fun story.
This is kind of a fun story. So we're asking you for your approval of a resolution approving the purchase of a 2023 Kenworth T480 4x2 dump truck with snow removal equipment.
So as you guys remember, I forget when now, 2 years
April
ago.
2022.
Yeah, we approved the order of a truck that we still don't have. And we don't know when we're gonna get this truck, and houses are building like crazy. And so, Mr. Starrett happened to come across this truck. It was already built, right? It's already built. It's a demo unit, correct?
So normally we're buying a chassis only and then
Correct.
having to equip it with the dump bed.
And go through the upfitting
all
and
the
stuff.
other
There's problems with that with the last.
This is actually a dump truck, so the truck and the dump body are on the truck itself. It does need to be equipped with the plow, the salt spinner and all the good,
All the storage
brine,
stuff.
what do you call those, brine tanks?
Brine.
So it's kind of the same story as the last truck that came before us with, that we didn't really know about, that Dodge, that dump truck that we bought, that Dodge.
We did purchase a Dodge, yes.
Yeah, we purchased
yes.
that because we came across it and it was already built, and so we jumped on it because we're having a hard time getting this stuff. So, as you know, we approved, what, 61 building permits last month?
Last month.
Yeah.
Yeah, more than that.
So we approved over 61 building permits, so the village is growing whether we like it or not, and we're going to have, like, this is going to go into the fleet because we're going to have the routes to plow. And we're not canceling the original order because we don't know when we're going to get that. But we jumped at the opportunity to buy this one. No, it was not in the budget. But we're confident that we can make the numbers work. And again, we're going to need it. Trustee Coe, you spoke to Mr. Hedges about this, right?
Yes,
And you're good with it?
yes.
Does anyone have any questions about this? We aren't going to obviously go out to bid because it's already built.
This was procured through the Sourcewell contract, which means it has been through the bidding process for us.
Okay. It's about the state contract,
Yes.
Kind of.
kind of.
Yeah.
If
It's not,
procurement-
it's not the state it's not like IDOT's contract, you know, like the,
Sure.
what is it, CMS, contract, but it is through.
A purchasing cooperative,
yes.
which allow to satisfy the purchasing and procurement requirements under the laws of the state.
Are we able to cancel our other contract on the vehicle that is yet to even go into production?
We probably could, but I wouldn't recommend that because I actually expect, based on the information that we obtained from, Rush Trucking, who is the, dealer for the state bid, that, the truck that was purchased in 2022 was purchased through the state bid. They can't guarantee anything right now. They seem to get about bi-monthly updates from International, who is the brand of the vehicle. But it looks like that truck probably won't arrive until second quarter 2025. Calendar year 2025. So we purchased it in 22. We'll obtain it in 2025. And we have a truck in budget in fiscal year 25. So I think we should not cancel. And
But that budgeted truck would be in addition to the one that was already ordered and this one here, because that's needed to replace a different truck.
so it's almost like a swap. This truck is going to be received so we put the 2022, the authorization in 2022 into the fiscal year 24's budget because we didn't get it in 2023 as expected. So it was rolled to 2024. We have another truck in the 2025 CIP plan, and it will be in the 2025 budget. So if it comes in the second quarter of 2020, did I say 2025? 2024, that's the 2025 budget. So, I think that it's almost like this one's gonna swap for that one, if you know what I mean.
I do. I guess my question is less on the monetary side. The one that we ordered in 2022
Yes.
was needed to replace a truck way back then.
It's going to
Or to
replace
add.
the 2023, yes.
So now
Sorry,
this-
2003. 2003.
Right, so then this one is replacing a different one?
This one is an addition. This was a planned addition to the fleet.
To account for additional.
This one here was not planned because it wasn't.
No, the one the one in the upcoming
I'm
budget.
talking about this one here,
This one here would be a planned addition.
that we're bringing forward one year.
Yes.
For next year's budget? Is that what you're saying, for next year's budget?
Yes. So,
Because we're not expecting to get this one during the 2022 purchase during this budget year. And so it's most likely gonna come during the next budget year.
Correct.
So we'll be paying for the truck that we're looking to purchase now with the
With
funds.
the funds set aside for that 2022.
Okay, and then that new truck then won't come until we've had the opportunity then to put it in the budget.
That's our expectations at this time.
Okay, but if it doesn't, then we're on the hook for $500,000. But I'm assuming, do we have any money down on this, on the 2022 one?
We have no money down.
Okay.
Nope, there were no payments required at the time of the acceptance of that purchase. But in the current budget, it was budgeted at 194,000 and change, around at 195, with financing approximately 75% of that. So, I mean, we're far enough in, we'll be far enough into the 2024 fiscal year that we will be able to net out, I believe, between the installment payments and the down payment to be right where we expected.
We actually then signed a contract and a specific amount of money. Are they, I mean, they're honoring that. then.
Yes.
So it'll
Yes.
probably be worth a lot more by the time we actually get it.
Yeah.
But they have to honor
But
it.
that's what so I guess in the industry with state contracts and that kind of stuff, I mean, that's what's happening all over. People are buying mowers on current contracts because when the state renews their contracts, they're going up over 50% in some cases. So, I mean, it's a fairly standard thing. So I personally would just take the gamble on the fact that we're not going to get this truck coming in this year and put it in the budget for next year. And then if it comes in early, we'll put the chips where they fall.
Trustee Coe, I don't know much about plow trucks. Are they mostly 4x2s?
All the trucks are 4x2s. A lot of them have the ability to go 4x4.
Okay.
Just like a pickup.
But a 4x2 isn't,
Not when you throw on a 25,000 pound plow and 25,000 pounds of salt, and some beet juice in the back, it's loaded.
Anyone have any other questions?
But by the actual listing of the resolution itself, for section 1, there's nothing in this that talks about the price of it at all. Or even reference to the quote in there. So we're authorizing the village manager to purchase it. And I just wanted to throw out there whether or not we should put a not to exceed, and then maybe that be 250,000.
That might be a problem because they have to put a snowplow on it.
But I thought that's, everything is
Yeah, I thought it was
inclusive in part
included in
1
the
and
quote.
part 2. There's 2 parts.
Yes, we have to quote for
Yes.
both pieces.
And that's why I said, so it comes to like about 200 and
It's 245, 506.
245, and that's why I think I
I read that.
rounded it up to
So it
250.
gives the buffer.
Gives it a
Sure.
little bit, but I mean, I'm willing to go a little higher, but there's nothing in here that says a price in there. It
I can
just-
do that. Yep.
And
Okay.
there's
I'll
no
add-
motion on the floor.
No, there's nothing on the floor yet.
You could incorporate the exhibits.
I mean,
What's the
right
best
now
way
it's
to-
discussion. I mean, this.
I can make, like, Attorney Vasselli suggested, I'll incorporate
Incorporate the exhibits. as
the exhibits
Right.
and call out the 245,
Okay.
506.
Perfect then.
And again, there's no motion on the floor, so we don't need to.
No.
When the motion comes up.
But it kind of puts at least that exhibit there then,
Sure.
and obviously, I mean, if it goes up a little bit, et cetera, it's within the ballpark, so, okay. Thank you.
Entertain a motion to approve 23-14, resolution approving the purchase of a 2023 Kenworth dump truck with the attached exhibits to set the price. Is that a fair motion to make?
So
Second.
And I have a first and a second. Any questions, comments, discussion? Mr. Deputy Clerk, can you call the roll, please? Ms. Fodor?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Mr. Coe?
Aye.
Mr. Mott?
Aye.
Ms. Palastrellini?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Hey, Ms. Lyons, more money.
Yeah. The next item on the agenda is a motion to approve a balancing change order for the water main connection project, decreasing the contract price by $8,082.68. The new total will be $958,559.84.
Ms. Lyons, I believe you skipped that meeting.
Oh, did I?
Sorry.
Oh, 8, I'm sorry.
Can we do E first, please?
Yes, I'm sorry. How about on a motion to approve pay estimate number 8 to Kane County Excavating in the amount of $87,338.58. This is, work completed for the water main connection. Sorry.
The information is in your packet. Engineering signed off. We have a letter. Does anyone have any questions?
Did I read the information correctly? This is the official final payment.
That is accurate.
Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion to approve pay estimate number 8, Kane County Excavating.
Wait, real quick though. It shows on page 53 that there's a balance due of $38,158.28. Is that the same question?
Let me take a look.
Page 53, the last column. Balance due. Because I thought it was a final as well.
There might be some additional.
We still will be
There's-
holding a 2.5% retainage. Because we'll have to do a final inspection, make sure all the landscaping came in and everything in the fall after it's had a chance to establish. So it'll be a full payment for everything, but there's a 2.5% retainage on the contract.
Okay.
So there's, 23,964.
I will still retain that same motion.
Oh, hold on a second, I'm sorry. On that same 38,158, the 2.5% retainage that's on page 50 is listed as 23,964.
That's what I said.
Right, but on page 53 that trustee Paul Strini was talking about, it shows balance due 38,158.28.
I think our balancing change order is going to decrease that amount to maybe net the two together. 38,11. Sorry. I don't get it.
So this lines while you're looking at that.
Yeah.
One of the differences I'm seeing is that on that page 50, it shows total completed construction cost 952,448. Total extras 6,100, so that puts it at 958.5. On page 53, the contracted price included is listed as 972.
Tim, I know Kyle's not here to talk about this, but have you looked at this at all?
I just right now, normally those numbers would, should match. So I'm not sure what,
Let's wait 2 weeks.
yeah,
Okay.
I don't know what happened if he has the wrong waiver attached or there's an error in their waiver that we didn't catch.
I'll make a motion to table.
Second.
Question, comments, concerns?
Yeah, I have a question and a comment and a concern. You really want to make a contractor wait?
I'll get the numbers right.
Excuse me, trustee Kelly, just a minute. You really want to make a contractor wait? It's been a year. You really want to make him wait for a math issue? Can we agree on paying him some portion so he may pay his bills? And come back with the final amount 2 weeks from now? Or do we really want to make the contractor wait another 2 weeks because someone here can't add? I'm serious. These guys got bills.
It's on their leave.
It's their paperwork.
It's not us that's asking.
It's not from a contractor.
It's the contractor's paperwork. It's the contractor affidavit that doesn't match what they're billing us. That's notarized for the contractor.
Okay, I apologize. Yeah, make them wait on it there. I just know this is a contractor point of view.
I completely understood your perspective.
Can you call the roll, please, on the table in motion? Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Mr. Coth?
Aye.
Mr. Mott? Ms. Palastrellini?
Hi.
Ms. Fodor? Motion passed the table 5-0. Okay, so now we have another one with the water main connection project. Okay, why don't we just entertain a motion to table that guy
That's
too?
no match either.
I'll entertain a motion to table the what is it, water main connection project decrease.
So
Questions, comments, concerns? Mr. Deputy Clerk? Mr. Coth?
Aye.
Mr. Mott?
Aye.
Ms. Palastrellini?
Hi.
Ms. Fodor? Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Pass 5-0. Okay, let's open the hands up on this one. This is the final payment, says for right here, to Alliance Contractors for $20,661.44 for work completed on our beautiful streetscape project. Anyone have any questions about this?
Just have one comment, just because I did the Historical Society walk the other week, and the sidewalks are peeling and look awful.
They were redone, so if you go out there today, they look much better. I think unfortunately, they are gonna require a lot of maintenance, probably with annual redoing.
Because originally they were supposed to put the dye in the concrete, and it was not dark enough, so they went back and they painted it.
Correct.
So, so every year we're gonna have to go back and paint it,
It's a dye. It's an actual dye for cement.
because it looks like it's peeling.
I know, it's horrible.
It looks
It'll look like that for.
There's no way
Thank you for
around it.
the honesty. but
Well, we have it in our
that's
park
terrible.
district the same way.
Okay.
It's just a salt and change in temperatures or?
No, it's the sun. The sun takes the color out.
But it's in pieces though, it's not.
Yeah, this is a little bit different
I think they
application. So
painted
the original concrete was dyed, if you will. And it was almost a pink color. It was, to me, kind of offensive. It didn't match the whole streetscape thing. And
I
so
did 8 miles of the Kent.
this was an application that we had hoped would have a longer staying power, but it after one winter, it was clearly very flaky.
How much does that cost for us to do? I mean, that the contractor got it this time, but we're gonna have to get it in the future. There.
Certainly the application of the colorants as well as labor to,
It's the labor and the prep.
yeah.
How about the white stripe down the center? They were gonna redo that. Did they redo that?
I don't know that.
Did they restripe everything?
I don't believe they did.
I know the crosswalks had some,
They
of
Did repair
little
the crosswalks.
rivets that, kind of popped off, and those were all repaired as
The
well.
white line in front of Copper Girls. Couldn't even see it. It's gone.
So,
Mr. Paulson, is this final payment meaning that EEI is signing off that the job is complete?
Yes, that's correct. We did a punch list with the village and the contractor, and they've, with, completing the restaining of the sidewalk areas, they've completed all the punch list items that we had.
Except for the white line down the middle of the road?
At last meeting, Mr. Hedges told me that they were gonna restripe it.
well, we could withhold it if we want to pursue the stripe. Right?
We could table this one as well.
All right, why don't we table it?
Does this include the retainage too, the 2.5% that we usually retain, or is that still out there too?
This is paying the retainage, releasing the
This is being
retainage.
okay. Not moved to take.
Second.
Okay, questions, comments, concerns? Mr. Deputy Clerk, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Mott?
Aye.
Ms. Palastrellini?
Aye.
Ms. Fodor?
Hi.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Mr. Coe? Aye. Motion passed 5-0.
Thank you all for the lively discussion. I'm going to turn it now over to Josh.
We have enough.
We have some more.
Oh, wait a
We
minute.
got another table coming up here.
We're gonna table that one too.
I would think.
Okay, I will entertain a motion to table H.
Wait, what is it?
It's for the streetscape. It's balancing the
It's a
change.
balancing sheet.
So I would table that one too. But that's just me.
So.
Questions, comments, concern, oh, I need a second. Can I have a second, please? So I'm getting ahead of myself. I got all excited about this EV readiness program.
Go for it. It wasn't seconding. I was just calling.
Sorry. Okay, thank you, Mr. Mott. Mr. Deputy Clerk.
Ms. Palastrellini?
Aye.
Ms. Fodor?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Mr. Coe? Aye. Excuse me, Mr. Mott? Motion passed 5-0.
Okay, Mr. Ray is now taking off his deputy clerk hat and putting on his assistant village manager hat, also our EV readiness program expert hat.
Sir, just put my presentation on the board real quick. I'll keep it brief. This is an introduction into the EV readiness program. It is a program that was started by the Metro Mayor's Caucus, and their goal, really, with all the communities involved, is to prepare and meet the growing demand for electric vehicles and the charging infrastructure associated. So the village applied for and was selected into the first cohort. It's no cost to apply, by the way, free program. So the idea is that we look at our village code, we look at our permitting processes, and we implement the best practices to make those things better. So you can see up there the list of communities to include some very large, City of Chicago, some rather small, Hampshire, Polo, some others are included. There is a certification process. That's the whole point of the program. There are well over, I will say, 70 tasks to complete. And depending on which ones and how many of them you do, you get a certification in either bronze, silver, or gold. So to get bronze, there's a certain amount you have to complete plus some electives. You get 100 points, you get it. Silver 240, gold 340. Our target is 180 points, and that's I'll explain why we're not going for silver or gold at this time. But just to show that we're not just doing the bare minimum to get certification, we are doing everything we believe we can accomplish in the time frame, which is essentially the end of the summer. These are the 11 areas of focus for the program. So each of these has kind of been a module that I've attended with the other cohorts and the sustainability coordinators for the Metro Mayor's Caucus to go over with some industry experts how to implement best practices in a community related to all of these things. I'm happy to discuss any in detail. I do have some examples of the tasks on the next slide, but the biggest ones that are going to play a part in the first Planning and Zoning Commission's role next week, and then the village board ultimately, are probably the planning and zoning and planning section, the parking and access section, and then the community engagement section. So that's where we're getting a lot of our tasks done, a lot of our points. You can see on there, there's a municipal fleets there at the bottom. That's really the reason that we're not going, I'll just flip to the next slide here. That's really the reason that we're not going for silver, I believe it is, because we would be required to procure 2 electric vehicles in order to get that certification. Not saying that we couldn't do that, but it wasn't in the plan. It's not something that we really looked at yet, so we could do that in the future. But it's the reason that staff's not doing it at this time. That's there at the bottom. Right above that is the reason we're not going for gold. In addition to that, is that it would require all new construction to be EV ready. We would have to implement that law at the local level. And we didn't feel that at this time, that's something that the builders would respond well to. Of course, the village could do that in the future.
Didn't the state, I don't mean to cut you off, but didn't the state just change the requirement that said that if you are building a new single family or detached home, you have to put in a charging station, at least a level 2?
Not quite that, but I have that point later in the slide that I'll share. Thank you. With a little chart. So,
Can I ask a question on this? You talked about the initial focus being community engagement, zoning and planning, and parking and access. Are we set up with the 2 award winners for, or grant award winners in our community that will have the EV stations? Are we set up for the permitting side of that?
We are. We are.
Okay,
That's
so-
one of the,
So that box is kind of already checked. which is
Yeah.
what you're saying. Okay.
yeah, our current processes with Safe Build and our online community core system, we do have a project packet online that's available that will modify a little bit. But basically, yeah, we'll provide everything that we need and it's all but done.
Okay.
So there's no board action required on the permitting side or anything like that. So you can just see here some of the examples of actions. The board did pass the Greenest Region Compact earlier this year, I think. The biggest part of it will be zoning and planning. That's on the agenda for the Planning and Zoning Commission's meeting on Monday. Just one example of the regulations in there will be proposed is to allow electric vehicle charging as an accessory use anywhere. So any type of parking lot, that would mean any type of parking lot could have EV chargers in them. Anybody's home could have an EV charger in it. Basically, any type of location that already has a primary use, already has a business or some kind of residential use, could add EV chargers to them.
State Street.
Well, that would be in the public right of way though, and that's public right of way space, not private parking space. So there will be provisions in there against placing EV chargers in the public right of way and access to those.
So are we looking at like the parking lots behind State Street, behind the Copper Barrel?
Well, those are actually owned by the village, so
Okay,
the
so
village
those are
could put those in if we would like to, but that would be a decision by the village. But for example, one of the industrial users that has a large parking lot up by the truck stop could add retail electric vehicle charging to their parking lot for employees to use or whoever else. So that's just an example. I just want to note one other thing, this on the safety and training section, there already was a training at the, I've forgotten what it's called, but there was a large conference, and at that conference, there was training for first responders, and we reached out to the fire district, and they sent some of their personnel over there to get training on how to deal with fires on EV electric vehicles. So that was a good thing. Lastly, I'll just mention the community engagement. So we've already got a draft webpage that's not live yet that has a ton of information. It will have information about how to apply for permits and that checklist. It'll have zoning information. It will have information about potential funding resources. It'll have information about contractor registration. So it's recommended that people use contractors that have registered and have been vetted by the Illinois Commerce Commission. So that resource will be on there for them to check. Just a whole host of resources to the community. So the next steps here, staff will prepare, finish this today actually, staff will prepare the recommended code changes. It'll go to the Planning and Zoning Commission for the zoning portions of that on Monday. It's possible that they might, and there will be a public hearing for that, by the way, it's been published. And then if they take action that night, wonderful. If not, there is another meeting availability baked in there where it would come to the village board in August, so they could take 2 meetings on it. We'll still be on track for village board approval in August. And then we'll launch the EV webpage. We'll have the permitting already available, and the regulations will be communicated out to everybody. So we'll be in plenty of time for the grant recipients up at the truck stop to go ahead and follow or take advantage of all of the resources that we're going to provide. The last thing I want to mention are a couple of points of interest. At the last cohort meeting that I attended, there was a person from ComEd there that presented on some programs that ComEd is rolling out. They're not available yet. They're not finalized yet. So she really said she probably shouldn't have came that day, but ComEd is going to hopefully be offering fleet assessments for municipalities and other governments to determine what types of electric vehicles should we be getting, what kind of charging systems are we going to need to keep pace with our needs, that sort of thing. And then they'll hopefully also be providing grants for municipalities to get charging infrastructure and even potentially electric vehicles. And then the last point is what President Reed brought up earlier, which is that the state of Illinois within the last couple of months did pass a bill that requires new home construction for single-family homes, and I think what they call small multifamily homes or small multifamily developments to be EV capable. And what that means, you can see as it kind of moves left to right, EV capable, EV ready, and EV install, they're kind of different levels of the installation. So EV capable is what's required in Illinois right now, or effective January 1st of 24. The panel has to have a breaker spot available, it has to have a raceway ready to take it, and it has to have a junction box essentially to get ready to put the electrical to install a charger. The next step would be to have all of the electrical equipment in there, and then the final step is to actually provide a charger, which is the most costly portion of that. So Illinois did not go as far as, for example, this program would have required for further certification. But again, something that a lot of communities are strongly considering and might implement. So that's the last slide. Any questions?
I just want to make a comment. I appreciate your involvement with this. Like I said, we had the opportunity, like Josh said, we had the opportunity through the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus to take part in this cohort. I don't want to hide the fact that I don't really feel like we're beating the drum for EVs, or saying that the whole village needs to go EV, or saying that the village fleet needs to go EV. But regardless of anybody's personal feelings about EVs, charging stations, any of that kind of stuff, this is what's coming. And we had an opportunity to get in on the ground floor and kind of get some help, kind of evaluating the way we do business before it's kind of forced on us, if you will. And as you can see, one of the requirements of the program requires us to kind of be, with the homes, the new construction and that kind of stuff. Well, the state already changed the law, right? So again, we're just trying to get in front of the ball a little bit and get some help doing it, and that's what this program is all about. And so it takes a lot of staff time and effort, but like was shared at the last board meeting, Loves and TA got grants through the state of Illinois to put in EV charging stations, and had we not really been a part of this program, we'd kind of been like, okay, now what do we do? So I think it's good in that kind of regard. But anyway, any other questions or comments?
Mr. President, the one thing that's missing there that I see is even evaluating the need within our community.
Right.
So I understand we were able to jump onto that and become a part of that group. But we don't really even know if our community wants it or needs it.
Well,
I understand that they're trying to make it that we have to have it, and I understand that people come and work in our town and visit in the town too. But I would think with all those steps that they would have asked the residents of Hampshire if that was something that they wanted or felt that they needed.
Well, at the end of the day, I think like from a municipal standpoint, we kind of have to be ready for it regardless. Because I have a feeling, and it's been proven time and time again, the state's going to tie whether or not you meet these qualifiers to grant funding. And that's just what they've done. They've done it time and time again. And so that's why we decided that we jump into it. So whether or not the community wants it, I mean, I drive 2 diesel cars. Okay, so I'm not beating the drum for I have 2 diesel cars and I have 1 gasoline car. Okay, I'm not going to get an electric vehicle anytime soon. But that doesn't mean that the municipality should be ready for when all of a sudden they're changing all the automotive regulations and all this stuff. So eventually this is a problem that we're going to have to deal with regardless of whether or not the residents want it or not. Unless something changes somewhere, then they're not going to be changing all the automotive regulations, saying that you have to be out of gasoline vehicles and that kind of stuff. Eventually, this is a problem that we're going to have to deal with on current trajectory.
I understand that. I know they're looking to making it mandatory as quickly as possible, but who pays for the electric? I mean, they're a private group, et cetera, but I mean, if the municipality is doing it.
Can I answer that question?
Yeah.
Since I actually do own one of these.
Oh,
And
okay.
and many people I know do.
Okay.
And, my school district even has EVs that they use for the driver's education program because it saved us so much money. The ones that are going in at the truck stops, I mean, the reason that they got those grants is because they applied for them.
Mhm.
They asked for it because the people who use the EVs paid for the electricity. So
Okay.
when you plug in, unless you're using one at the mall, which is still free, so which is awesome, because they're trying to drive business to the mall because it's dying. The users pay for them, just like we do,
Okay.
when we use gasoline. So you are charging, no matter what fuel source you're using, you pay for the fuel.
Right.
That's the way it goes. Same thing when I'm charging in my house. I pay for that electricity, but I pay for it with the solar that's on there. So no matter how I'm paying for that. But yeah, people use it. But the reason it's at the truck stop is not because people from town are driving to the truck stop to fuel up. It's because all of the people who are driving on 90 are stopping and they're fueling up. And the ones that are going out there, I think are the ones that will be able to charge their vehicles in like 20 minutes. So they're pretty quick. And out done. And if you have ever traveled with a family, 20 minutes is about the length of time it takes to get all the kids out of the car. Go get your snacks, go put that back, stop bothering your brother. No, we're not getting that. Go wash your hands. You did not wash your hands. No, you need to go back to the bathroom. You know, and the car is already charged and out you go. You know, whether you're filling up your diesel truck or you're filling up your, you know, it takes about 20 minutes.
What's
And
it
that's
cost to fill up a recharge of vehicle?
I don't know, because I never used the ones that you have to pay for.
figured
But
that.
it's, yeah, because you know,
Anybody
there's-
know? Josh, you know? I don't. So,
If there's one by my neurologist's office, and my husband just swiped his card, and I think he paid like, I don't know, $6, but he didn't need to fill.
oh, it's not much.
But he didn't need to fill.
So it's not worth the village to put in a big bank of it, charge people, make profit.
To be honest,
I don't even know.
to be honest though, trustee Coates, through our streetscape conversation, we looked at that.
Yeah.
The problem is that for us to put in the charges was a significant amount of money that we didn't have in the budget to do.
Because it's an investment.
We would have had to,
Infrastructure.
I was gonna say, I think the feedback was, and why I'm happy to see ComEd involved in the discussions and the meetings you're going to, is that, at least my understanding was part of this, why it was scrapped as a part of streetscape, was because we didn't have the electrical infrastructure to support charging stations, that we would have had to have paid to have different types of lines and supply lines sent in or brought in to be able to support that.
Right.
and at that same point, you know, through these conversations, I mean, we have a lot of homes that are planned, right?
Mhm.
They're not built yet. And
Right.
so, you know, if they, being in on the ground floor, you know, they can address some of the power needs, overarching power needs before those homes go in. I mean, you know, we talk about this all the time. In my old home on Old Mill, we had 100 amp service. If we put two superchargers in,
Right.
we didn't have space in the panel. Okay, not only that, but then, you know, when that area of town was built, they don't have the transformer for everybody to have two superchargers
Right.
in there. There's a lot of holes in this. I'm not disputing those, but we're
Yeah.
trying to do the best that we can do and try to take advantage of the opportunity so that we are not ignoring the fact that these are requirements that are coming down.
I just want to add one point related to ComEd is the reason they want to be involved is for that exact reason. They want to be ahead of the infrastructure needs. So one of the part of this program on the website, it will be a area where citizens can register their electric vehicles. So that ComEd knows that when they're out there, what areas they're growing in and when they can proactively have a capital plan for upgrading the system there. So they're taking a really proactive approach, I think.
But they have to, because the drainage of if you've got so many homes pulling electricity, you gotta overload the system.
Right.
And just for your information, I'm talking about homes here, I'm talking about solar, because there's a big program now with solar companies to provide battery backup for homes and also for electrical charging for included in the system.
Yeah.
Right now, it's something that you have to do is, if you're talking to somebody that is going to be buying electrical vehicles, adding future, you have to size the system correctly to allow for that, because if you put it in at the size it's in, then you buy 2 electric cars and then you want to charge it. It's not going to work, and it's going to cost you a lot of money to change the system to accommodate the charging of vehicles. Also, the charging systems have to match the particular solar equipment. You can't just come along 10 years later and go, hey, I'm going to add some electrical charger in, because they don't work like that.
Right. Well, why, I mean, you've driven past my house. Why do you think we have some solar panels?
Yeah, like my house, I couldn't add a
So,
system on that because
yeah.
they don't make a system that would work with my house.
Right. And that's why it's so important to have that EV capable. I mean, that dedicated branch circuit is so important for being able to do that. And even our vehicle is a hybrid, so we do have gasoline and, you know, that plug-in hybrid. So being able to plug in or run off of the gasoline, it's something that works for our family, but it doesn't work for everybody. I mean, if we're gonna, but we've driven that car to California. And, you know, yeah, we have to plan certain things, but then we'll run off the gasoline. It's just, this is an awesome system. And being prepared for whatever comes is important both for our village and for, so.
It's a really unique opportunity, and like I said, I take full blame and responsibility for getting the village involved, and I know we're putting a lot of staff time and effort into it, and no, we didn't poll every resident and say, do you want this or not? But it's coming whether we want it or it's not.
Well, and we get a lot of tax dollars from staff in our village, whether they're fueling up, with fossil fuels or they're just buying snacks, we don't care. We're glad you're here, and maybe they stop and say, hey, this is a really neat place. Maybe they want to live here.
And if they do, we need to be ready, because they're gonna want chargers in their garage.
Maybe they do. Or maybe they just really want to buy some laptop.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ray, for that in-depth presentation.
That was awesome.
Can you take off your EV ready stand now and put back on the deputy clerk's hat?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right. Now we have staff reports tonight. We have the streets report.
Skip that, we'll pick that up on Public Works.
Okay. Is that okay, staff?
Absolutely.
Perfect. All right, next you have accounts payable to personnel in the amount of $363.39. Any questions? All right, we have hearing done. I will entertain a motion to approve the accounts payable to personnel in the amount of $363.39.
So,
Seconded.
Question, comments, concerns?
yeah, I have a question, page 88. I'd like to know what our police department spent $43 on electrical tape for. Did you go to Elgin or something?
This is when we did the active shooter training, and they needed, what they do is they clear everybody's duty guns, and then they tape them. And they tape them on the barrel, and they tape them on the
Okay,
grip,
thank you.
and the rifles too. So
Nice.
it's bright colored.
I thought it was quite a large amount of money for electrical tape.
Any other questions? I have a first and second. Can you call the roll, please, Mr. Deputy Clerk?
Ms. Palastrellini?
Aye.
Ms. Fodor?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly? Mr. Coe?
Aye.
Mr. Mott?
Next one is the regular accounts payable in the amount of $185,000. $185,000. Anyone have any questions?
I have two, Mr. President. On page 87, American Legal Publishing, $4,300 for codification.
That's where we send our codes and ordinances to get codified. That's our codifier. If you go to our website, you'll see that they actually appear in the ordinance book. That's the company that does it.
That's the company. So we do pay for them.
I believe it's once a year.
It's happy.
It's like, it really depends. It seems like they're on the bills every now and then. We have this question come up whether it's hot or cold. So it seems like when they're ready to send us an invoice,
Pretty much, yes.
it used to be Sterling codifiers, now it's American Legal. Correct.
And the only other question is on page 101, Sutton Fun Car Show, $2,500 sponsorship.
Yep, so we sent them a check for $2,500 because that is the only event that we don't sponsor in town. And so I felt that it was unfair to all the other organizations that we sponsor chamber events and park district events and that kind of stuff. And so we sent our show $2,500 this year.
Okay.
Which I had a conversation with Ted Tegman. He's like, we're kind of the outlaws in town. He goes, so don't expect that check to get cashed. So we'll see. I hope they do cash it because, it is a huge event and they do bring a lot of people to town. And so again, we've never sponsored them in 40 years. And so we figured that we should do something for them because they do bring a lot of people to town.
They asked in the past?
Never.
Never.
But they're literally the only event that we have almost nothing to do with other than providing police support. Any other questions? And I will entertain a motion to approve the regular accounts payable in the amount of $185,031. Questions, comments, concerns? Mr. Deputy Clerk.
Ms. Fodor?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Mr. Coe? Mr. Mott?
Aye.
Ms. Palastrellini?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0. Here.
Got it? Yep. Good. All right, let's see, village board committee reports. Mr. Kelly for BDC.
BDC will be meeting on the 12th, or they have their regular scheduled meeting on the 12th at the same time and location as always.
Mr. Cope has got streets report and.
83 of your packet is the streets report. I didn't have a chance to do the streets report, so I had Steve's report of some of the stuff they accomplished.
So do you have any questions? See Mr. Cope. Budget.
Nothing to report at this time.
Mr. Robinson is not with us, so we don't have any public relations.
Newsletters coming out.
Newsletter coming out, new water bills, right?
Yep.
That's exciting stuff. And
Yeah, so
Tyler.
I see a nice little graph on your water bill about your consumption, so pretty exciting.
Get with the times. Is it gonna be like that lie that we get every year from ComEd or every month? Because I get that every month and I swear to God, I am not as efficient as my neighbors and I don't know who is efficient.
I'm the worst in town.
Yeah.
Where everybody's here and I'm like,
I want to know who my efficient neighbors are because they aren't anybody that I talk to. Literally, I took that picture and I sent it to all my friends and I'm like, is it you? And they're like, no, here's mine.
No, it's still not me.
Even with the solar?
Still not us.
Wow.
I'm the
My
worst.
husband told me.
I wonder-
And he's like,
I wonder if ComEd gives a prize or something. Because I've never won it.
Eric's a solar water, my grandson.
Maybe it is.
Okay, new business. Okay, other announcements? Oh, yes. Go ahead.
Thank you for such business. The Lions Club is going to be on Monday night meeting discussing the proposed bike rack that they wanted to donate to the facade. Just a question is there any specific place in town to consider that should be placed?
I believe the plan and the grant that we applied for showed it at one of the corners of the intersection right out here at State Street and Jefferson.
You're like on James side of the street, not on the active restaurant.
One side was gonna have a bike rack and the other side was gonna have a skateboard rack.
Ooh, skateboard. Thanks. Tony Hawk gonna come visit?
Hope so.
You skateboard, don't you?
Absolutely.
Does the
Bill and I
in
go out
the
all the time.
resemblance of the one that's
He always wins the race.
at the library, would that be considered that something that they want to have?
The one that, and this is just the one that was included in the grant, that street supervisor Dave Sterry picked out was, just a ring circle. That you could have a bike on, two bikes on, one on either side.
Oh.
So if there's something else the Lions Club would like to explore, I would reach out to Mr. Hedges.
We had been checking a catalog that the library had for the one that's outside the library, which I think it has about 9. It's a single, you can have single-sided or double-sided. And they have a single-sided one which accommodates about 9 bicycles. And it's not actually mounted to the ground or fixed to the wall or anything. It's freestanding. I'm just trying to get some ideas to
Here we pull that out of the
Lions
street.
Club about. Is that something that they can?
They're
doing 5,
So-
they're doing 6, they're doing 9.
So Mr. Hedges, I would normally say Mr. Hedges. I could say Ms. Lyons, but I don't know if she's gonna be able to field these questions. Honestly, Dave's the one that picked it out. I think that, can you facilitate a conversation with
Absolutely.
Dave? Miss-
Yeah.
Miss Deputy Manager?
You bet.
With trustee Mott?
Yeah,
Thank you. Any other questions or new announcements or anything like that?
Yeah, I just want to apologize, trustee Cook, for interrupting during the conversation.
Yeah.
And you had the floor and I apologize.
I should have saw the notary, from the people that don't do math right.
So, the clerk's job is posted, it's on our website, where we are actively searching a new clerk. So if you know anybody interested, please refer them to our website. We have had a lot of interest from a lot of people in town, and so, that's just sort of a know, to keep you in the know. We also, for the same reasons that we never appointed a trustee, we need to cover the fact that Ms. Palestrini is back. I don't want anybody from the public to call your legitimacy into question, which is the same reason why we didn't appoint a trustee in your absence. So back on the 18th of May, Ms. Balestrini submitted a resignation letter in open session to me and sent one to the village clerk or the King County clerk. We discovered that the state statute said that the letter had to be notarized, and the letter was not notarized. And I will make a long story short, but we involved the King County clerk, and the King County clerk was involved. And through this process, a letter was agreed to be sent, but not sent. And through this process, trustee Palestrini has reorganized her schedule and feels that she can fulfill the obligation of her term until it is up on April of 2025. So we're happy to have Ms. Palestrini back. But I also, I don't want, everything we do is under a microscope. And I'm not trying to be disparaging or anything of that nature. But everything, last meeting, we had individuals come to speak to us because we didn't post the agenda in quick enough fashion on our website. And so I don't want there to be any confusion because it was a public resignation. The resignation was not effectively notarized, so therefore, according to state statute, it was invalid. You changed your mind. This is kind of unprecedented. Everything that we found in council that we've talked to in multiple municipalities says that because it wasn't notarized, you're free to stay.
One question for you, President Reed. With that, we've passed some minutes from previous meetings. Am I safe to assume in the next village board meeting, we'll have to reapprove and amend those to show absent
100%.
rather than just having trustee Palestrini on this?
100%.
Okay.
And that's just one meeting. 'cause we've
Is it just
already-
one? Okay, perfect. That's easy. That's
30
one
days.
set of-
No, we had
Oh, we had a
two.
couple,
We had
but-
two.
Two, well, we just did the one, then we
Yeah,
just approved
but
today.
anywhere it may have been the case, we'll just have to reapprove.
We'll have to
it.
go back and amend the minutes accordingly.
Okay.
And again, so like I said, we're glad
Again, because you're saying we're under
microscope.
scrutiny and microscope, we need to make sure that the minutes are reflected.
And a motion to adjourn. Unless anybody has any comments.
So moved.
Can I get it? Questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I got that, trustee Mont.
Go. I believe that gavel was directed towards our village attorney.